Just like living organisms, they too can fuse, recombine, segregate their content, and evolve, following the laws of natural selection. What this means in simple terms is that some ideas tend to breed more in our minds than others. They tend to be more infectious, more popular, and spread faster. An example of an infectious idea might be a religious ideology, a trend in fashion, or a meme. Richard Dawkins, evolutionary biologist, proposed a name for these selected infectious ideas. He called them memes, and they became his most memorable invention. Memes compete with each other for brain time and bandwidth, but they compete with each other most of all for attention. Jacques Monod, a Parisian biologist, proposed an analogy. Just as the biosphere rises above the world of non-living matter, an abstract kingdom rises above the biosphere, with ideas being the sole natives. But if ideas are as real and as tangible as I'm making them out to be, can they be entirely harmless? That is the dilemma we seek to resolve today. Good morning, my name is Lusha Jetley, and I'm here to talk to you about Dank Memes. Now, a simple opinion wasn't enough to convince me. I wanted to know what my generation felt about this. What do people actually think about this? And so I carried out surveys comprising of a total of 448 respondents. And my findings were as follows. 85% of the urban India I interact with believes that memes have the power to affect people. 62% of the urban India I interact with believes that memes are problematic. And over 50% of the urban India I interact with believes that memes contribute to problematic issues like rape, genocide, communalism, etc. Now, we need to think about memes in the present-day context, right? What makes them so different? What makes them so unique from all the other modes of cultural transmission that we have? It is that they continue to be spread in an unregulated manner very quickly with all of us. Technology is at our fingertips. All we need to do is think of the meme, make it, and it is out there. The second thing we need to keep in mind is the fact that there is no check on what the content of these memes is. It is just your idea with some crude font and some crude text, and it's out there for the entire world to see. That is what makes memes so unique compared to other modes of cultural transmission. When we start thinking about memes in the present socio-cultural political narrative that we are operating in, we need to consider their intersection with politics, because that is what I'm here to speak to you about today. How do memes intersect with our roles as citizens? Now, memes intersect with our roles as citizens via a unique way called trolling. Now, you all must be familiar with trolling. There are two essential aspects of trolling which cannot be ignored. The first being that when you are trolling someone, they must truly believe in what you are saying, no matter how outrageous what you are saying may be. The second aspect of trolling is that you must give your victim malicious instructions under the guise of help. Now, what this seems to be to all of us is just some childlike humor, just all of us trying to have fun, and that's all okay. I'm all for preserving childlike humor. But when childlike fun transitions into a smokescreen for extremism, we must begin to reconsider and think about what is harmless and what is harmful. We're entering the most sensitive segment of this talk now. There must be a voice in your head saying, well, opinions are up to perspective, your wrong might be my right, and you can't go about defining what is correct and what is not. And I agree with that voice. Let me begin my contentions by saying that I adore memes, and I have spent my fair time on Facebook searching for dog memes I can hoard and use when the time is right. But this isn't about dog memes. This isn't about Grumpy Cat or Arthur's Fist. This is about Holocaust jokes. This is about Kawaii Hitler. And this is about jokes on disabilities. All of these comprise a plethora of what we know in the internet community today as dank memes. Dank memers and those who associate themselves with this ideology emphasize one thing, that all of these are unquestionably ironic. These memes consist of things like joking about an exaggerated collective suffering of our generation, or something like war or genocide, something that we should not laugh at, but we do anyway. Once again, I'd like to reiterate that they emphasize that this is completely ironic. But you see, the problem with that is that whatever their intention may be, whether it is ironic, whether it is not to be reasoned out, whether it is illogical, whether it just exists for the lulz, it has a place in our conversations, in our minds. And that's where the problem lies. Unfortunately, when we look at the intersection of memes with politics, we see them emerging now as a means of participation. We see people spreading their political ideas via memes. Why is that? Because we talked about it earlier. We talked about how memes, because of how they're edited, how they're spread, they have managed to occupy a very special place in all our hearts, and I'm sure the youth will agree with me. That is what makes them so unique, and that is why when we start using them as a means of political participation, the line between what is okay and what is not tends to become exceptionally blurred. And a good example of this is Pepe. Now, I don't know how many of you spend your time on 4chan, but I sure do. And I came across Pepe a long time ago, about in 2015, 2016, where he was just a crudely sketched frog, there for the memes, fine, that was okay. We were all fine with that. But the support for Pepe grew, and more people started making memes with Pepe just to spread their ideas a bit more. And what eventually ended up happening was that people who we today call neo-Nazis begin to use Pepe as a means of spreading their ideas. And slowly but surely, what started out as just a simple sketch of a crude frog became the symbol of the alt-right. Keeping all of this in mind, let's go into the logical reasons for why memes are problematic today. Firstly, meme culture discourages logical political discourse. There's not much you need to justify when you can just pass off your opinion as you being ironic or you being edgy. There's also not much you need to defend when you can just troll the person who is challenging your opinion. Meme culture dismisses justifications. It allows for you to come up and say, can't you chill, it's just a joke, and get away with it. The second consequence stems from the first. It's that they reduce accountability. When you debate someone, when you debate an opponent, you know you're going to be held accountable for your opinions. But what memes do is that they remove the logical basis for this accountability. Because at the end of the day, it's just a joke, right? How can you ever argue or ever try to disprove someone's sense of humor? A good example of this is a certain someone in the current socio-cultural narrative who got away with saying something as preposterous as climate change is a conspiracy. And what that led to was a lot of people tuning into his campaign, searching for new meme content. As his preposterous claims grew, so did support for his campaign, as the young audience was just searching his Twitter and watching all his debates to try and find new content for their memes. Everyone who was partaking in this exercise knew that this was ironic. They were just in it for the lulz. They were just in it so that they could have some new memes out there, some fresh memes out there that they could laugh about. But some people went a little far. Some people thought that this was not dank enough for them to be funny. And so some members of this young audience went as far as to vote, ironically, for this man. Let me reiterate that for you. Voting, the sole means of organizing the power structure of a country, was used ironically. The third reason why memes are exceptionally problematic today is because they encourage apathy. I believe this is the worst consequence any political vehicle could have. And that's because the world is at a very, very strange crossroads right now. We're all exceptionally connected thanks to technology, interdependence of trade, globalization, and yet it is today that we find ourselves exceptionally polarized. In today's world, when we are struggling to achieve cultural, ethnic, socioeconomic unity, what memes do is only impede and erode this process. We stopped saying the N-word because it hurt. We stopped joking about Muslims because it hurt. We stopped making jokes about 9/11 because they hurt. But what memes do is actively disregard this. You see, in economics, you have something called weights, right? When you're calculating indices like family income, you assign greater weights to some things. To the poor man, food is more important than, say, electricity. And so the weight or the importance assigned to food is greater than the importance assigned to electricity. As a society, too, we also attach more significance or weight or importance to some things than others. And this is what makes some jokes more problematic than others. By virtue of the magnitude of atrocities conducted, by the number of lives hurt, by the amount of hurt and suffering that exists for those concepts in the world, that is what makes some issues more problematic than others, and that is what makes some jokes more problematic than others. And that is why it is not okay to joke about that. I'll give you a very personal example. I don't think it's okay to joke about suicide. And that is because I have had friends in my life who have lost themselves to these tendencies, and I have seen them crumble before my eyes because they succumbed to these tendencies, or at least went as far as to never really think about what else there is to life and what is the meaning of life. And so when I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see a meme on suicide and how our generation is so stressed out, they all want to kill themselves, I can't help but think of all my friends who succumbed to these tendencies and all my friends who went as far as to forget what their life's ambitions were. You can also take the example of the Holocaust, which you all must be familiar with, which has become the fodder for a lot of memes. Till today, there continue to be several memorials about the Holocaust all across Europe. There are about 100 services conducted every year just to remember the Holocaust. And what memes expect us to do is to forget the suffering associated with these things and to normalize them under the garb of irony and bring them back into our conversations as though nothing ever happened. That is what is the problem. You see, there are two consequences of normalizing something like that. The first being that it comes back into our conversations. And this is no problem for the objective, rational mind who can reason out what is right and what is wrong. But what about the vast majority of us who are prone to developing prejudices, who are prone to favoring one group over another? By virtue of the experiences that we've had in life, by virtue of our own surroundings, our own environment, we form biases and prejudices about who to trust and who to not. This impedes our rationality, this impedes our reasoning, and this is why it is, to a large extent, not okay for these elements to come back into our lives, because it just means that these people, all of us, you and me, who have tendencies in which we favor one group over another, to start thinking about who to favor in these situations. When we start thinking about, in 9/11, who was right, was it the terrorists or was it the government, was it the Muslims or was it the white people, that becomes an issue. The second consequence is very simple, and it's something that we talked about earlier as well. When these ideas tend to catch up and gain influence in society, what ends up happening is that the people who are perpetuating these ideas think they take this as support and confirmation that their ideas are right and their ideas are acceptable and their ideas can be perpetuated in society. We give them the confirmation that this is okay. We give them the thumbs up that this is fine because our audience has accepted it. Coming to the crux of this all, our political activism is wasted on dank memes. We all agree that the world needs to change, but the world is going to change when we begin to actively engage with its problems, with its afflictions, not passively normalize them under the garb of irony. Racist jokes won't end income inequalities, sexist jokes won't end female feticide, and casteist jokes won't feed the 30.4% of SC/ST children in India who today continue to spend their lives without adequate nourishment. I have bombarded you all with my opinions, and if you've slept off and just woken up, there's only one thing I'd like for you to take away from today: meme safely. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for being here today.